everything went quiet, and then you heard the rocks being thrown.
That's correct.
Now
and
it's
on the same day of the second evening that happened in September, or no, it was in November, when I just had the rock thrown at me by myself walking that afternoon. When I had told you across the river, I kept thinking I was catching little glimpses of movement,
right,
but not in an area that I was paying much attention to. One, because it was so far away on the other side of the river, and I was focused on the area that I was hunting. My son's deer stand is about 400 yards down that property, close to the edge of the river, and he had actually sent me a text that day more than one time and asked me if I was whistling, trying to get his attention. And I responded to him, no. He said, I swear I heard you were whistling at me. I said, I was not whistling at you. I'm still in the same spot I was hunting at when we went out this afternoon. I have not left this area. And he had asked my other son, who was all the way at the back part of the property, if he had walked up close to him and whistled at him. He responded the same thing, that he did not. And I've heard stories and documentaries and that a Bigfoot is known to whistle.
I've heard that too. Whistling, hooting, howling, knocking, different noises like that.
Right. And there's a couple other times that I think I've heard some tree knocks coming from across the river as well, where I actually tried to respond by clacking rocks together or beating a limb against a tree, but I got no response from any of them. There was a couple times when it was pretty quiet out, no wind blowing or anything. You would hear a very distinct smack against the side of a tree with what sounded like a stick or a log.
Sure. Well, the other thing that really stuck out about your story is you told me, actually you sent me a photograph of an area that you were just taking pictures of the area. And upon further review, I guess closer review, in the right-hand corner of this photograph was something. And as you blew it up, it was very obvious. It was something, some type of a creature, a being, an entity that was a biped, standing on 2 feet, appeared to be maybe a light chestnut brown hair with a white face, almost like the hair on the face perhaps had become gray with age.
Right.
And you showed me that picture, and I blew it up, and I looked at it. See, it could be this, it could be that, it could be a lot of things. But then after you told me your story, I researched this a little bit further. And Reynolds County, which is a very rural county, there's a lot of forest. It's right in the middle of the Mark Twain Forest, correct. And there aren't a lot of people that live there. Much of the state of Missouri is cornfields and soybean fields and cornfields, but this part is a lot of very thick, dense forest where people don't live. As I was researching this, I came upon another story of another Bigfoot sighting in Reynolds County, Missouri. And it showed a picture very similar to what you were telling me that you took. It was a photograph that was just taken, and then off in a corner, you blow it up, and it was the same entity, but a different pose. It wasn't the exact same form. It was a similar form, but from a different view, from a different angle. It had a different stoop, but it had the same distinct white or gray whiskered face of the photograph that you sent to me. Right. Now, I never had told you about this photograph until today. Certainly, you've not told your story to many people, so the person who took that photograph could not have shared it with you. But for whatever reason, this same entity showed up on 2 different photographs in the same general area, taken by 2 different people at 2 different times. That, my friend, is too much of a coincidence, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. And I was pretty shocked myself because, like I said, it was about 8 or 10 days after that hunt that I was going through my phone, and I decided for some reason I started zooming in on the photographs just looking around for that reason alone. Hey, did I pick anything up on my phone? But
and these were the photographs you had sent. These were the photographs you sent to your friends to kind of, you know, rub their nose in the fact that you're having fun and they're not.
Right, right. And like I said, I would go most of the time when I'm hunting. I'll take a picture, to send it to my friends or whatever. This is where I'm sitting at hunting today, because they, they'll do the same thing to me. They get beat off work on a Monday and go on a bow hunt, and then they send me pictures. Oh, you should have taken off work and come with me.
Exactly.
But I was when I came across that in that photograph, I was overwhelmed that what I thought I was seeing on that photograph, and it immediately set me in motion to start doing research about that area. Print out larger copies of that picture. I sent them to my printer. Blew up the photographs of it, and it set my wheels in motion for a couple of weeks. I was like pretty involved in it, like every evening or every minute that I had spare time, I was Googling stuff on my phone like daily at work, and it overwhelmed me. And there's still, this has been since the fall of last year that it's happened, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it or even bring it up to my sons or whatever. We still talk about it all, if not daily, every other day. I'll even crack jokes about it. Oh, we're on that hunt down there and Bigfoot ran me off, and I just make jokes about it all the time. But so anyway,
yeah. Well, as I researched this as well after you told me your story, many, if not most, of the sightings in Reynolds County were from deer hunters, quite often in a deer stand. So this is not uncommon. But if you think about it, there's not many people who live in this area. Okay, if you're taking a walk or a stroll through the woods, and there's something who doesn't want to be seen, he's going to hear you and avoid you. But if you're in a deer stand, you can be quiet, you can be motionless for hours at a time. And that's part that's part of the reason for being in a deer stand, so that the deer don't know you're there, and they come upon your sight. Well, if you're quiet enough to fool a deer, perhaps you're quiet enough to fool other beings as well.
Right, I agree. I don't know, the photograph what I saw in that photograph clearly looked like it was looking in my direction, like it knew that I was there.
That's what I saw too, and
he did not look happy.
No, and the photograph the other photograph that I saw from a totally unrelated person in the same area was very similar. It was that same being, that same creature. But again, it wasn't the same picture. It was the same creature, but from a different angle, from a different view, from a different. Right. It was like the same being, but not the same picture.
Right.
And again, totally unrelated. This guy doesn't know you. You don't know this guy. You just supposed to put your pictures out there, and there it was.
Right. Yeah. The photograph that you're talking about that the other guy took, I haven't even yet to find that one. I'm anxious to figure out where that's at on there so I can look at it.
Yeah. Let me get that and let me send that to you, because I think you'll be amazed. It's the same being that you took a photo of. In my opinion, it seems to be.
Right.
I've always been of the opinion that there's something out there, a Bigfoot, a wood ape, a missing link, a nearly extinct being in the deep recesses of the forests.
Right.
This is nothing new. This kind of thing has gone on for years and years and years. I stumbled upon a story. It was actually out of the Boston Gazette, and the story reads like this. In fact, I'll read it verbatim. It says, "A gentleman on the South Fork of the Saluda River, in a letter on the 23rd of the month, sends his correspondence in this city following description on the Bald Mountain in the Western Territories. The animal is between 12 and 15 feet high, and in the shape resembling a human being, except the head, which is in equal proportions to the body and drawn in somewhat like a terrapin. Its feet are like those of a Negro, about 2 feet long. It is hairy, and it is a dark color. Its eyes are exceedingly large and open and shut and down its face. And the hair on its head is about 6 inches long, and it stands straight up. Its nose is what's called a Roman nose. These animals are bold, and they have lately attempted to kill several persons, in which some attempted to have them shot. And that was out of the Boston Gazette from a happening in Charleston, South Carolina on May 17th, 1793.
1793. Well, I can tell you this. Spending as much time in the woods as I have since I was from a little kid, going hunting with my dad, my grandfather, and my uncles. If I wanted to disappear into the woods and not be found or seen by anybody, I could very easily do it.
Because they're so dense.
And not be discovered. So I don't believe, there's not a doubt in my mind that something that has the intelligence to and doesn't want to be seen or found could do the same thing.
Well, and they seem to be very intelligent as well. Some people have said that some people call them a wild man. I mean, maybe some people call them a wood ape, a missing link. Maybe some people have said it's just a group of people who didn't want to be cooped up in society, and they've made their way and just lived in the woods, all of which could be possible. But what's not possible is the hundreds, the thousands of sightings that people like yourself have had throughout the years. You're not imagining. It's not your imagination. You're not imagining things. That's what it is not.
Yep, I firmly believe that there's 100% truth in it. There's no doubt in my mind, and I can't wait till this following archery season to return to this property. I hopefully plan to return there sooner than that to do some smallmouth fishing, and hopefully it'll be warmer outside where I can actually wade across the cold river and go do some scouting around on the other side and see if I can find anything. Of course, during daylight hours.
Oh, of course. I suspect that when the sun starts to go down, you may not be there for long.
No, probably venture back to the other side of the river. There also, on that same piece of property, the guy that owns it had some of his employees, a couple young men that worked for him, went on a camping trip down to the property. There was like 4 or 5 young men, probably in their late teens, early 20s, and they had 4 or 5 girls. They had 3 tents set up, and one guy woke up in the middle of the night because he had to go to the bathroom. He believed he heard something walking on the gravel bar 50 yards away from their tent, and he was too afraid to get out to go to the bathroom because it sounded like something walking on 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he finally got up the nerve after about 15 minutes, whatever it was, stopped moving, but hadn't gone away. It was apparently still about 50 yards from where they were camping at. There's like another fire pit sits on the edge of the yard to the cabin, if you will, and there's a little small patch of trees with a lot of cedars and whatever, and it's just a nice little camp area if somebody wanted to camp or hang out there by a bonfire at night, which we've done while we've been down there hunting.
Sure.
Well, this young man said that he got out of the tent, and when he turned with the flashlight to look in that direction, there was no moon that night, he said, but he just seen a large silhouette of something that looked to be about 7 or 8 feet tall, and it turned around, and it stood there the whole time until he came out of the tent. And when he came out of the tent, it turned around and took off across the river. It didn't run, but he said it was walked very fast, and its stride was so big that it didn't take it, 30 seconds to get from where it was at 60 yards across the river. He said it was very fast, whatever it was.
Well, and these sightings, these stories are all similar. And one of the things that we've not heard almost never is these creatures seem to be somewhat docile, and there's few, if any, reports of attacks on humans.
Right.
But we're still afraid because maybe of what we don't understand or of something that's bigger than us. But it's not like a wolf or a bear who will attack man.